Hello guys and girls of Facebook all over the world. I am live from Ljubljana. My name is still Alja and today I have a treat for you. It's been quite a long time because it was quite cold in the previous days, so I was trying to do the video walk, but it was too freezing to come out, and today it's a really nice day, so I hope you'll enjoy the walk. I am starting in front of this beautiful door. Look up there. Do you like them? It's one of my favorite doors in Ljubljana. But first of all, I wanted to give you some soul food. Oh, hi, Osain. Cuba is here. Before we go into a brutalist part of Ljubljana, which I got an idea to film in a couple of days ago, but I'll talk about this a bit later. Let me show you where I am. It's quite nice though. The spring is coming, Ljubljana is warming up, but still Ljubljana is close to the Alps, which means that whenever there's snow on the Alps, we always get the chilly winds in the city, and that's why I'm dressed up so much. As you can see, look, I'm like a bear because I don't want to freeze today. When the sun's gone, it's gonna be cold. So let me show you what I see in front of me so you get an impression where I am. This is a nice view here, an old building, but what I wanted to show you is if we can see it. Let me try the other side. We are actually gonna go the other way from this one, but what I wanted to show you is the mountains, which are covered with snow on top. I'm not sure if you can see that. It appears like some clouds up there, but those are not clouds. That's snow on the summits of the Alp mountains, which are about 2,000 meters high, which means that Ljubljana is quite cold, even though it's springtime now, and it's supposed to be, or actually usually it is a bit warmer. So let me show you some of the buildings here. There, I like those details. Look up there. I just like those buildings. They remind me of Paris, France. Oh yeah, that one. Or I want to show you also the opposite way before we start the walk to the other side. Oh, where is that? Let me see. Okay, some of the architecture out there. The 30s of the previous century, with decorations that I love. I wish I could have this in my house, but well, we're not all that fortunate, are we? So let's turn around. You will be seeing the same view behind me for a while. Today I'm not the only one doing a video in Ljubljana. It seems that we have a filming crew just one street behind, a block from here. They're shooting a movie and they have not told me which one, but I saw my friend Juan, actually my tutor of Spanish, performing and acting in a movie, so I hope I'll get the answer soon. Anyway, today I want to show you a part of Ljubljana which is usually not on every tour route when visitors come from all over the world. It's a kind of, actually a part of the city which even Slovenians feel very strange, because as you can see, look at those buildings there behind. I just love them, historical styles. I intentionally started the walk here because I wanted you to see some beauty before we go into that brutal part. Actually, the idea for this walk started about 2 weeks ago when I was doing my live video of the old town, which is usually the part of the town where visitors usually go to, and it's the part of town that everybody would always show to anybody who comes here. But it's not the only one, and the part we are gonna see today is, since I see that Cuba's following us here, is a part of our country and our city most connected to the recent or the pre-contemporary history of Slovenia. This is why I'm saying it's not our favorite or the people's favorite part of the country, and it is quite emotional for me because ever since I was a little child growing up in the former times, we say here, I was trying to research and discover why and how this part of the history was made and what happened during the end of the 20th century here. It's so recent that even historians are still, some of them, fighting over what was happening and how actually it was going on in the times of our previous country called Yugoslavia. I want to show you a thing, if we can see. Oh, what a beautiful sunshine! Wait, let me show you the sun. I know it's the same everywhere you go, but look, isn't it just marvelous? Don't you like it? And these trees? Well, if we move a bit away before you lose your sight, this is a National Museum of Slovenia. It's precious. It's not a big one, but it has a lot of very important artifacts. And the way we were coming from, look at this sky today. Isn't it great? It's a bit kitschy almost. It's blue sky with these white clouds, looks like on a painting. This is the way we were coming from. For those of you who just joined, I see that we have some new ones here. And that's where we were. So if we continue this view to the right hand side, I'm in a nice park now. You'll be able to see my shade. Look, this is how I look like, my silhouette. I like dancing. Do you like dancing? And this building there, I'm not going to tell you yet what it is. Not too big, right? But a very big soul in it. We could say that. It's an important one. But before I show you the rest, I want to show you myself on the sun, getting a suntan finally. The summer will come eventually one day. So I was telling you that we are going to see a part of Ljubljana which isn't a historical part, but it's a very important part for our identity. And it's, for me personally, quite an important aspect of who we actually are today as Slovenians and as a nation which is one of the youngest, the nation not, but the country itself is one of the youngest in the world probably. Look at that. That's what awaits for us today. Beautiful, isn't it? It's a tomb of heroes. And that's the topic of today. A few days ago, I was messaging a friend from Havana. Javier, you know that it was us talking, and Javier said, you know, Ljubljana really, as far as I had seen it, reminds me of the Cuban, the Cathedral of Havana, which was built in this Baroque style of the colonies. And I said, well, Javier, I know what you mean, and you're right, because a lot of it was done in the same time, but there is a part of the city, probably the only part that is like that actually looks like Plaza de Revolucion in Havana, which is a revolution square, and it's a totally different part of the city and has a totally different atmosphere to it, even not just the architecture. I'm gonna try to cross this street here. Okay, no cars. I hope no police sees me. I'm entering onto a huge, actually the biggest Slovenian square, which is always a tricky one to film, because you never know from which side of the square to show the perspective of. But what we're gonna do, I'm gonna walk a bit further, and then I'm gonna do it step by step, because otherwise it's gonna be too small on the video as far as I know cameras. Behind me now, still there, you can see the National Museum of Slovenia, of Ljubljana. That actually, the behind quarters where we're coming from now, is the part of Ljubljana which I call like a cultural quarters, even though nobody had ever called it like that. It's probably only me. But I like to call it like that because there's the seat of the National Museum there, the National Gallery is there, the Museum of Modern Art is also located in this area, as well as a very beautiful Orthodox church of the Serbian Orthodox religion. I'll take you there in one of the next walks, but today with a view of the past, there and there, we are gonna enter into the present of this country. And the present is there. It's quite big. And this one is like a symbol of Ljubljana. These two guys there, I call them the Twin Towers of Ljubljana. I know it sounds funny that we always want to call them some famous names. You'll be able to see the temperature up there if you can. It says 10 degrees centigrade, which is about probably around 50 Fahrenheit. It's fairly okay. It's not really warm. I left my bikinis at home today, but it's fairly okay. And those are the two buildings. That's why I said, and that's why I wanted actually to show you first the medieval and the historical parts of Ljubljana, because usually when people see this, they are like, ugh. You know, it's this brutalist concrete architecture of the 60s, 70s, 80s of the previous century. People just usually don't like it. I mean, it really still depends on who you ask, because it seems that somehow the time has passed and this is becoming now vintage and also becoming quite favorable in some circles, especially the architects, and you know, some people really like it. But it is really modernistic in a way that there's no decoration, in a way that it's made of a cheap but durable material, more or less durable, which is a concrete and iron, all those modern, so-called modern materials of the 70s. And this very square was done in that time. As you can see, it's getting shady though, but let's go first to the right hand side. Hope there you'll be able to see some buildings and monuments. I really like this huge one here. I know it's hard to get more socialistic than this, and that is the past. Let's try to go closer. That is, you know, the past of the country. Even though we have all this beautiful, marvelous architecture and the big story of the Austrian Empire for 700 years, we were a part of it. We still had this experience after the Second World War, after 45, of socialism. And in a way, at the beginning, communism, which turned into something different than what you know and had probably heard of happening in Russia. It was a much, much softer version. If we can call it a version, led by our president at that time, Josip Broz Tito. Those of you who were born in the 60s, maybe, or a bit earlier, have heard of President Josip Broz Tito, a Marshal Tito, also called, due to his international activities. Are you saying how come he was internationally active when we were a part of a socialistic bloc? Well, that was one of the things that really were so different in, at that time, Yugoslavia, from, at that time, Russia and the whole Eastern Bloc during the Cold War. The fact that Yugoslavia was really, in a way, an open and progressive country, even though we had a federal system of socialism called a federal, how was it called in English? Socialistic Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. And Ljubljana was one of the 6 republics of that big country that stretches all the way down in the Balkans. And the story of this square is really connected to Yugoslavia and to Slovenia as it is today. And the monument that I was showing you is a monument, and you can see it here, written Ljubljana, May 1975, and it says Spomenik Revolucije, which means the monument of the revolution, showing all of the people who suffered and died during the revolution times, and of course also the times of the Second World War. Somehow these two were very connected in our past. I really like this monument. It's massive. You can see it. Maybe I'll try to show you in comparison with the two people sitting there, just so you can see. It's made of iron. It was made abroad. They transported it here from Croatia, I believe. And it's heavy like hell. if you can imagine a tourist coach, which is like, that's my topic, tourism. So a big tourist bus weighs the same as this monument. It's 19 tons. I can't really get it into the camera. If it's up, then it's too dark because it's in the shade. But anyway, you can see this part and the blocks behind it. This is of course going to be much greener in the springtime. Look at the clouds. It's so cute, isn't it? Look at this photo. It's like a photograph of Ljubljana, the two twin towers. What's really interesting about these two buildings and the whole square itself, the square was called the Square of Revolution after the times of the Second World War, and today it's called the Square of the Republic, and all the most important events of the history took place here. And what's really interesting about this square is the fact that it's quite big. I mean, in front of me, when we say big in Slovenia, we mean middle size probably, because Slovenia is in general very small, so everything which is big in size, it's much smaller here. But this big square has a big historical memory, and in the past, much before the Second World War or even the 20th century, the square was actually, I'm gonna turn around so you can see the square behind, was actually a big garden of the monastery, which is just behind there. Up there you can still see a tower of the church. This was an old monastery. It still is. They don't have a garden here anymore, but the square really reminds us of a big open area and a square that it was before a garden. Then it was turned into many different things. When I was growing up in Ljubljana, this was a big parking lot, not even a lot, a parking place. It was terrible. Imagine this square full of cars, and these socialistic cars, the small ones, which came in three colors, the yellow, the red, and probably white. At the beginning only those three were on offer, and it was really not a place where you would ever want to come and visit or see whatever. But then history happened, and in the 60s, I believe it was in the 60s, so before my time. I know some of you had already seen the earth in that time. I have not. In the 60s, the republics of Yugoslavia were allowed. Today I'm doing a little bit more of guiding, because otherwise I don't want to keep you just watching. Leroy, I think I pronounced it well, had a question or an observation. I see in the comments, nobody in the street there. Nobody in the street here because they're all in the sun. Because you see, I'm in the shade here, and because it's a square. I mean, not a lot of things happen here. We just pass through when we are in this part of Ljubljana. Most of the people are now probably in the old town or in a park even, because it's the time after. Let me try to do this in the camera. It is the time when people are starting to come from their jobs. They would go into a park as long as there's still light and sun. It's quite lively though in Ljubljana. It's not deserted. I have no idea about the lockdown. Don't even ask me, because I have no idea. Are we not anymore in a lockdown? But people are out. We are not wearing masks, as you can see. When we're out, indoors still we do. So in a way, the feel of a normal, if you want to call it normal life, is there and starting again, or just continuing the way I believe. So I was saying that in the 60s, when they started to, and they, you can see the monument behind me now, and they finally agreed that the Yugoslavian republics will each have their own parliament. This is what happened. In front of me there, they built this building, which is, ladies and gentlemen of the world, the Parliament of Slovenia, the National Assembly of Slovenia. I told you, it's a small country, and we have a small, tiny parliament. We do have a round hall inside with 150 seats, of which only 90 are taken by our representatives. This is the most hated or the most beloved building of the whole country of 2 million people. Depends on who's sitting inside and depends on what's happening in the society or what's happening in the politics, of course. I actually have to admit something. I started to like this building. I know it doesn't look much. It's definitely not looking like a big Congress building or a White House in the States or even a King's Palace in Rabat, for example, in Morocco, or many other buildings around the world where the politics happen. But in a way, it really resembles the nation of Slovenians. It is small. It is modernistic, if you want to call it like that, but in a way it still has quite a lot of decoration of the facade, which for me personally is a beautiful blend, and I love eclectic styles, the blend, of the old styles and the former times of modernism. Okay, Mojca, I see you follow. Thank you. Mojca from Ljubljana is following us, and she's adding that Zdenko Kalin sculptures are decorating the facade. Indeed, that's what I was saying. Exactly. It looks all concrete and boring and geometrical in style, but we do have some decorations, and I love it. And one of the decorations will move closer. I hope they let us film there. There's somebody. Look, there's a car waiting for somebody important. Maybe they're waiting for me. We'll see if they recognize me. I'm joking. It's probably somebody who's gonna come out of that door, which I did once, I admit. I came through this door only once, not due to my work, but due to and after a visit of the parliament itself. So Slovenians, Ljubljana people, if you ever, after the corona times, are interested in how this beauty looks like from the inside, do visit. They have guided visits, and it's beautiful. Not the hall itself that we know from a TV, but the entrance and the hall before the main hall of the parliament, which is beautifully decorated with frescoes showing the Yugoslavian and the war times, the history of Slovenia. Anyway, let's see. Nobody stopped me yet, so traveling around the world so much, I got used to being a bit reserved when it comes to shootings or videoing, recording anybody in uniforms or any important objects. So I'm sometimes really taken by surprise in Ljubljana when no one does anything. I can sometimes just, pass by a policeman and I'm doing a video and they don't stop me. Like in some countries, they would have taken your camera or at least told you not to shoot there. So that's one of the things that I like. The police here is pretty relaxed. Well, it depends. I know Slovenians will not agree probably. We had some protests in the last year, but the last year was really exceptional for all of us, and I don't want to go into politics at this moment, even though we are on the most political of the squares of the whole country. I have come closer to the door. Aha, there. Well, if you want, you can take a picture now. This is the door I wanted to show you, and the image with also the flags. I was also waiting for the sun to shine on the portal so you can see it a bit better. I really love this position now, where you can also see the socialistic designed lamps behind me in the window of the portal itself. So what you can see is a lot of figures. I still don't want to keep you so long to go into very detailed explanations. We do this on tours. I also really love to go into sociological, not really explanation, but insights on why this looks like it does, why we have people of different ages all naked on the entrance of the parliament. This is the man that the driver was waiting for. It wasn't me, because he's got a suitcase and I'm with a backpack. Anyway, of course it wasn't me. You can see that the traffic is passing by. That's one of the busy, not so busy streets, but one of the streets of Ljubljana, which is really interesting that we have this parliament and then only about 5 meters between the parliament and the road itself. It gives it a very, very little space to breathe. I love this image now. You can also see the national flags to the left and in the window there of Slovenia. And coming here today, like I'm always, I have to say like this, before I have tours, even though I've been doing this job for 19 years, I always still read a lot of new things or insights and try to connect different things and different knowledge I have. You can see the parliament behind me now. The driver's still there with that beautiful car. So I was just reading about these recent times of Slovenian history. I was maybe lucky enough to be born in the 20th century still, which a lot of us were, right? But that time of our times in our country was a very important century in which we had 3 wars taking place on our lands, in which we changed 4 different countries. I sometimes say without even moving out of the same apartment. Imagine that. Actually 5 countries, starting with Austro-Hungarian Empire, then into the pre-Second World War Kingdom of Yugoslavia, then Yugoslavia itself, and then Socialistic Republic of Yugoslavia, and then Slovenia. I know it's confusing, even for us sometimes, so don't worry if you're totally confused, but I don't want you to be. I actually wanted to explain this one. The parliament behind me there was one of the 6 parliaments in the times of Yugoslavia. So built much before we actually became independent as an independent country, when we were still a part of a bigger system of southern Slavs, Yugoslavia. So at that time, also, this was the main square. And no wonder then in the year of 1991, which was 21 years ago. Is that true? 31 years ago. Time flies. So in the year 1991, when it was obvious after the referendum of Slovenia that we actually want to get out of Yugoslavia, and at that referendum Slovenians had decided to have their own country, and this square having a parliament, right, and at that time already also having these 2 buildings that we had seen already before. The left one, the seats of the National Bank. The right one, offices at this time. So that this very square actually was chosen for the big celebration at the happening of the independence of Slovenia, becoming Slovenia as we know it today. So it was on this very spot where I'm standing now, in front of the parliament. Look, the sunshine on the parliament with these kitschy clouds up there and blue skies. And another part of it here to the right hand side. It's just a shopping mall done in the same style as you got it now. The whole square amazingly was done in these times of the 60s, 70s and 80s. It took them 20 years to build all this. So the whole square is like an art form on its own, When you want to go into socialism, brutalistic architecture, then you come here and you experience it live. So what I was saying in the 1991, in the summertime, just when the school was over, on this very square where I'm standing now, they set up a stage behind me up there. And this stage was prepared for a very, very special announcement and celebration. It was the 26th of June 1991 when all the important people of Slovenia at that time gathered on this square, and when we had a tiny little president. He was much shorter than me, even, like up until here, probably. If I'm not trying to mock him, but he was a really short president. He announced that Slovenia, after hundreds and hundreds of years, one girl is too afraid to pass by, but she rather go around. She thought I'm filming forward. Our president at that time announced that Slovenia, after hundreds of years, became its own country, the nation which finally has its own country, and it all took place on this square. This is why I say I feel quite emotional when I take the time to actually come here to the square. Most of the people, when we come here as locals, we always only pass by, or we come for demonstrating in front of the parliament, which was happening last year a lot, or people that are living next by, they go grocery shopping into the store. But if you come here and if you just stand here for a while and try to take all this in, all of these meanings for a small country, what it means, first of all, to have its own parliament, secondly, to have this square where it's took place, and all of us know it very well. The independence was followed that very day, the 26th of June of 1991 was actually followed by the 27th June, and 1 in the night the war started. So it was only for this 8 o'clock the ceremony, I think, started, only for a few hours, 6 or 7 hours, that we were all so excited to celebrate the independence on this square and all around Ljubljana. But then the war started, and it lasted for the next 10 days. This is a war which we usually diminish with the shake of hand. It's like, it was a 10 days war between Yugoslavian army and the Slovenian territorial defense. But the war took place, and at that time Slovenians did resist. We could have just, let the country of Yugoslavia do what they want to do, but the Slovenians resisted. And in that 10 days war, 70 people were killed. So we had 70 casualties. It was a very brave act on the side of my countrymen. And I'm so proud of it still whenever I think about it. And for me, this is the square. This is the place where I remember all this. And what I remember, that even though we are so divided now, it seems that the whole world is divided into left or right or whoever or whatever you want to be, black or pink or white. Still, even though we are divided now, and these divisions come greatly from that building behind me there, once we were not, and when it really mattered, we weren't. And at that time, on the 26th of June 1991, it was declared that we have our own country, of which we're still taking care of and loving deeply. So I will leave it here, because I'm getting too emotional, and because I had actually shown you what I wanted to show you. I wanted you to see this part of history of which some of the people in Slovenia are very proud of and still refer to as one of the golden age. That's the time of Yugoslavia. How and why Slovenians feel strongly about socialism and even in a way Yugoslavian connection of federal states will have to stay an open question until we meet in Ljubljana, because it is a topic that is grand and it has many reasons and many sides to the story even. But the fact is that a lot of Slovenians yearn for that times when this very square was built, and when this very parliament was just one of the 6 parliaments of a big federal state. We are, of course, in the new times, and we have our own country, something that we had wished for a very, very long time, first under the Austrians, then under the Yugoslavians. And since 1991, this square here is a symbol of Slovenia. It is now also called the Republic Square, and it's the place where annual celebrations take place on the 26th of June every year. Anyway, I hope to see you again soon in Ljubljana. I have so many ideas what else I want to show you. One would have thought that Ljubljana being so small, there's really nothing much to see or show to the people, but I really want to show so many things. So I think I will be doing another live in about a week time. And even if you miss it, I always record it and post it to my profile. I also put it to my YouTube channel, where you can see all the older walks as well. One was in Bled 2 weeks ago, I remember. It was the trip of the year, going from Ljubljana to Bled for me. So if you enjoy these walks, please come join me again. If you feel like buying me a coffee, I will also add a link to buy me a coffee place where you can do so. I wish you a beautiful Tuesday. Ljubljana's Tuesday is slowly coming to an end. It is now, let's see the time, 5:30 p.m. local time, so it's time for me to head home and start cooking, which I love doing. Have a beautiful Tuesday all, and see you again soon in Ljubljana. Bye!